got my One Carolina shirt on from Palmetto Shirt Company. First of all, I'd like to send our thoughts and prayers to everyone that's been affected by Hurricane Florence on the North and South Carolina coast. Hurricane Florence has left many regions of our state and the state of North Carolina in need. The One Carolina T-shirt is specifically for the disaster relief. The Palmetto Shirt Company will donate all of their T-shirt proceeds to Habitat for Humanity affiliates in the affected regions of North and South Carolina to help rebuild and provide aid. Our athletic department is also accepting donations of clothing, water, food at the Rice Center. You can drop those items off there, and all donations will obviously be taken to the Rice Center. So it's a very unfortunate situation. I still think 500,000 people are out of power. Flooding's obviously an issue and very sensitive here of what happened in 2015. So all thoughts and prayers are with those people right now in a very difficult time. We play Vanderbilt in Nashville at 4 o'clock, SEC Network on Saturday. Derek Mason's got a really good football team. You watched him last week go to Notre Dame and turn the ball over 3 times, 1-on-the-1 going in to score, another interception in the end zone. Played extremely well in that football game. Offensively, Kyle Shermer is a 4-year starter, an outstanding player, a guy that you gain a lot of respect when you watch the tape and how he orchestrates and runs the offense. They got a lot of confidence in him and how he runs the team, and he does an outstanding job. 4 quality backs in Vaughn, Blasingame, Wakefield, and Crawford, all very capable. Use them two at a time at times, but very quality backs. Lipscomb, the receiver, is a really good player. Obviously, their go-to guy on the perimeter, and Pinkney, the tight end, is a guy we faced for the last 3 years and been a very effective player for them. Defensive, they got a new defensive coordinator, Jason Tarver, who's known Derek for a long time. But what you see is a lot of experience and an aggressive play and an aggressive style of how they call the game. They got 7 seniors starting on defense, so they've got a lot of experience and guys we've faced throughout the years, and they do a really good job on teams. But our guys are looking forward to getting back on the field. Obviously, last Wednesday we canceled the Marshall game. Our guys responded with an outstanding practice on Thursday, a very competitive practice. We lifted on Friday. We gave them Saturday off, and we came back and had a Tuesday-like practice Sunday night, which I was very pleased with. Now we're into our normal game week and had Monday off and practice this morning. Did a nice job. So I'll open up for any questions.
Well, you mentioned that, the guys knew about the cancellation on Wednesday, but how was just the focus and the energy in those couple of practices and now going in this week? Anything
really good,
higher or lower?
I told the guys it'll be a distraction if you allow it to be. And at the end of the day, it's a very sad, tragic situation. It's awful, but there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to control what we can control, and that's our preparation. Thursday was an outstanding practice. Friday was a good lift in the weight room. Gave our coaches a chance to start working on Vanderbilt. And then I thought we had a very good practice Sunday and working into today. So I think they've handled it well.
Well, first, what did you do on Saturday?
I watched a lot of football. So we were prepared for the worst, and we watched a lot of ball.
Okay, were you able to enjoy it, or just knowing that you were supposed to be playing on Saturday and you had to cancel, was it, I don't know, did you go through some agonizing moments?
It was very unusual. I can assure you of that, but it was just different. It was good to spend the day with Carol and Jackson and Witt, and that's kind of what we did at our house, and watched a lot of ball. I got nervous before every game, and we weren't even playing. So I had anxiety before every game, and we weren't even playing. So, but that's kind of normal. I don't think I've ever had that flavor, but go ahead.
Coach, with the time off, I guess, how do you guys guard against maybe coming out flat? I know the guys are juiced up. They want to get out there.
No different than an open week, and we'll approach it. We've done a lot of good work, and as much as we could as far as also getting prepared for a very good Vanderbilt team. So we've got a lot of fastball work, so I feel comfortable about that preparation.
Well, has there been any discussions about making up the lost game, and what's the status of that?
We've had numerous discussions, Coach Tanner and myself, about the 20th. Obviously, is our open week, or depending how our season ends up, December 1st. And once we know a little bit more about where we're headed with that, we'll certainly make that information available.
First, is any new injuries or anything to worry
No,
about there?
DJ will be the only guy down that's been a guy that's contributed.
And Rico obviously didn't have his best game against Georgia. How was he afterwards? And when a player has a bad game as a coach, do you say anything different to him? Just let him be? Does that differentiate from player to player?
Coach them all the same. Be very technical in their approach about, 3 drops, some things that we could have certainly cleaned up in the game. At the end of the day, be very technical in our approach and what we need to do to improve. There wasn't a lack of want to or effort, and those are always, to me, if you're being technical about an assignment, about a technique, about a fundamental, then we need to coach better. If we're talking in terms of effort, then we need to go a different direction, and that wasn't the issue.
Was Vandy one of the games you watched on Saturday?
Yes.
What can you learn about maybe watching that game live instead of watching
Flow of the
film?
game. Not right now with so many, people offensively with tempo and different things. What is the flow of the game? How is the game being administered? Get a good feel that, obviously they play extremely hard. It's easier sometimes to see that when you're watching the TV copy as opposed to maybe a coach's copy that we see. But those things to me are easy to see.
Coach, 2 years ago, you got your first win at Vanderbilt. What are your memories from that night up there in Nashville?
Elliott Fry, 55 yards. Guys battled in the game. Didn't start out very good with a kickoff return that we've reminded A.J. Turner about several times. Debo dropped a punt, and we reminded him a couple times. So we continued to battle in the game, hit Debo on the speed sweep to score, and then hit a couple field goals with Elliott there, and then the 55-yarder there at the end. It was a huge kick and had all the confidence in the world he was going to make it.
Does having the surprise week off allow you guys to have some more time for self-evaluation, and what kind of stuff can you learn with a little bit of that extra time?
Well, we did that along with working on some opponents before our open date. We had a little extra time when we found out Wednesday, and we switched gears pretty quickly to look at some other guys. But I think we're always self-evaluating what we need to do to improve and get better.
Looking at Danny Fennell, I guess, through the first 3 weeks of the season, and how much are you going to lean on him moving forward with DJ?
Danny's playing well for us. He had a big sack against Georgia there on the 4-man pressure from the field, but he is a very steady player, continued to improve every year since we've been here, is a very dependable player. You know what you're going to get out of Danny all the time. You're going to get great effort. You're going to get mental and physical toughness in how he approaches the game. And I've been extremely proud of him right now and what he's able to do for us. He's our starter at Sam Backer right now. With Dennis going out and Bryson being basically the primary buck for us right now. Really proud of how Danny's played.
Well, what's the key for your defense going up against like a guy like Kyle Shermer who can chuck it all over the field?
Well, they're going to be balanced in what they do. I think, first of all, they're going to give us some different motions and shifts. They do a really good job, and Andy does a really nice job week to week of giving you some things you've got to adjust to in the game that maybe you haven't seen it, whether it's from a different personnel package or a different motion or shift. So we got a really good eye control and discipline in what we're doing. Where you get hurt in the run game is they outflank you at times because of motions and shifts, and you don't adjust well and getting your eyes in the right spots. And that's something we've worked on a lot. And then, he just knows where to take the ball, whether it's middle field, split safety. He knows, when the ball's snapped and turns over, do a good job of disguising, maybe force him in a bad situation. We're not going to show him anything he hasn't seen. He's a very experienced player, and he understands the game. And I think as much as anything, he really understands what they want to do offensively. And but takes the ball to the right spots. He's very accurate with the football. So, again, he's going to complete some passes. We just can't let him have explosive plays.
How much did the outcome of that Vandy game 2 years ago help you and what you were trying to do in terms of rebuilding?
Well, I think Josh, you and I have talked about it before. You've got to have some positive reinforcement, and part of that's winning. You can't continue to coach and practice and, prepare and work out the way we work out if you don't have some self-gratification of a victory and feeling that positive reinforcement. That's what you're out there to do, is go win the game.
And do you and Derek share any defensive roots or philosophies that are the same? Is your systems cross paths back anywhere?
No, I don't. We didn't talk ball much. Got a lot of respect for how his teams play. His teams play hard. They play tough. They play physical. It's the same way when he was a defensive coordinator at Stanford. but I got a lot of respect for what they do.
Jemias came and played a very huge role for you last year, and he's going to play a huge role this year, but he is not starting. How does he handle that? And especially knowing that he's kind of a backup at 3 positions, but he's not a starter.
He's upset about it, and I'm glad he is because he's a competitor. And you don't want a guy to be happy he's not starting. I want them all to want to be starters and want to be guys that play the whole game. But he's played as much or more than the guys that are in front of him, and that's an evaluation that goes on week to week on who's going to help us win the game. And at the end of the day, be in the game when the game's ending. That's the most important part.
Do y'all prepare or game plan any differently for a quarterback who's inexperienced versus a guy like Shermer who's been around the league for so long?
I mean, I think you've got to be realistic on looks and pre-snap looks that you want to give a quarterback, and maybe that a younger player that you might be able to bait into a throw where you're not going to be able to do that with a more experienced player that's probably seen a lot of those looks before. You got to be careful, especially in terms of never let disguise put you out of position, which that's what happens sometimes when you try and get too cute and disguise things, and all of a sudden you can't get yourself in the half field and you got a problem. But, I don't know that, we've got to, make him make more decisions post-snap as opposed to pre-snap. And sometimes with younger quarterbacks, they're just lucky to get their eyes in the right spots. So pre-snap, disguise isn't as important as maybe it is with an older player.
You couldn't have played 2 more opposite teams in the defensive line than you played in your first 2 weeks. How do you think your offensive line handled the step up in competition with Georgia, and how have they handled it since?
I thought they handled it well. We didn't have any really pressure issues as far as protecting the passer is concerned. I felt like in the most part of the run game we got a hat on a hat. At the end of the day, we had some one-on-ones. Our backs got to make some people miss. That's bottom line. So I thought we did a decent job when we were called to in the run game, and I thought we did a good job of protecting Jake.
After 2 games, how do you kind of grade the play of your safeties overall?
I'm not real pleased with where we are.
Well, aside from making guys miss, from your running backs, is there anything else that you maybe tweak or change or something that you're looking for from the run game this week?
Well, again, there are going to be you're going to have to win some one-on-ones. We talk to our players all the time about it. I'm not just talking about the running back position, but whether it's your a receiver outside or you're a cornerback outside covering or you're a linebacker in the hole with a running back, you got to win your one-on-ones. And when you play against good people, that's what you got to do. And so there'll be some one-on-one situations. We got to make a guy miss or run through a tackle and run through contact. Continue to do a better job of protecting the quarterback when you're called on in protection and catch the football.
Coach, with a lot of the young guys that are on this team playing their first road game, what advice do you give them heading into that game to prepare them for their first road game?
I think as much as anything, you lean on the older players as far as their experience in traveling and understand it's a business trip, and there's going to be a time that you need to focus and dial in, and there's a time you can relax and when you're on the plane and those sort of things. So some of these guys will be jump on the plane for the first time, on Friday. So that's always interesting.
Coach, is there a preference or how you decide whether you would rather take the ball first to start the game or go on defense? And I guess when you go on the road, does that play into it, matchups? What all goes into you? Because y'all have opened with the ball both games this year.
We wanted to take the ball the first game, and in the second game we didn't win the toss in the second game. They deferred. I think that I always think in terms of matchups. What is our best matchup? Our offense versus their defense versus our defense versus their offense. What's the best matchup? Obviously, weather is always a concern. Do you want the wind in the fourth quarter? It's going to be a tight ball game. Does the wind have a factor? Is there going to be a storm hitting the second half? I mean, what is the forecast? Those are things that I look at and we have a lot of discussion about, as far as those things are concerned. Playing on the road, to me, if you got an experienced quarterback, that's not as much of an issue as maybe you have a younger quarterback. You might want to think through that process in those situations. But obviously you're always targeting to get out to a good start. You know, some games are more important than others as far as that's concerned. So I think that's a discussion that we have as a staff. So yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into whether or not we want to take the ball or kick or defer to the second half.
Kind of a follow-up on that safety question. What specific areas do you kind of say you need that group to sort of improve in?
On what? Communication. You know, it's implorable that we line up and leave a slot defender uncovered, which I don't know that's happened maybe once in my coaching career. It may have been last Saturday, or the last Saturday that we played. That a middle field safety won't tell a young freshman to cover down on the slot. That's a huge, major issue. You know, but I would say communication is a major issue for us and has been one through camp and now into our first 2 ball games. And that's, you know, if we do that better, then you put yourself in a position better to tackle better, which tackle's not been awful, but we need to tackle better, you know, and need to be more productive overall. You know, production.
Communication a couple times. How do you work on building that communication? Does it come with more practice reps, or do you maybe look at making a change in the starting lineup to get someone that communicates a little bit
Well, I
better?
think both. We work with crowd noise about every day at practice, and you got to make guys signal that you're not going to be able to, in front of 80,000 people, verbally communicate. You got to hand signal, and that's something that you got to always work on, because you create really lazy habits when you verbally try to communicate in front of 80,000 people. So that doesn't work well, and obviously if you're not getting what you need, you make a change. Now, if the change isn't communicating either, you know, we're not going to make a change just for sake of making a change.
Coach, special teams wise, I mean, going back to that Georgia game, I know teams are kicking away from Debo. Has he been working at all maybe with punt returns, try to bring that explosiveness out there, or are you more concerned with just maybe possession and just being in good field position?
Well, if they kicked it out of the end zone, they didn't kick it away from him. So but we're going to return it if we have opportunities, and I have all the confidence in the world that Brian Edwards will do a fantastic job as our punt returner.
After facing, you know, a team like a Coastal and then a team like a Georgia that has so much talent versus a team that might have a little less talent, do you feel like there's still a lot you don't know about this team just because of sort of the level of the 2 teams that they've had to face in the first 2 weeks?
We've had 2 opportunities to play on Saturday, and we've been okay and not okay.
I guess it's probably more of an emphasis at the pro level, but when your guys are getting after the quarterback, do you have to teach them or coach them, like, to be careful on the way they strike them and to be cognizant of what they do when they're wrapping up and all that?
You got to lower your targets. Can't lower them too much. They call that too. But you got to keep the crown of the helmet out of all contact. You know, when you're talking in terms of protecting a defenseless player, which a quarterback in the pocket is a defenseless player, or a quarterback that is sliding is a defenseless player. So obviously no head contact, but you got to lower your targets. You got to get the head out of the contact. We talk to our players about it all the time. Now, me and you sitting here having this conversation is a lot different when you're rushing a passer. You finally beat the 330-pounder you've been headbutting against for 4 quarters, and you got an opportunity for a sack, but you got to remember to keep your head out of it. It's very easy to be critical of a guy that doesn't necessarily get his head out of it, and we talk about it and we coach it as hard as we can coach it. It's no different than tackling right now. You know, I mean, it's in conversation of just us sitting here talking, it's a really easy conversation. But when you've got a 220-pound running back barreling down on you, lowering his head, and you're telling a guy not to lower his head and have a little bit of crown contact, which that's why you wear a helmet, it's difficult. It's difficult. I think they ought to have, you know, they have in soccer, they have yellow cards and green cards and all that. Well, some of these aren't malicious contact. Kick a guy out of the game if it's a malicious contact. But if it's not a malicious contact, if you want to give him a 15-yard penalty, that's fine. But we're going to kick a guy out of a game because he's tackling a guy on our sideline, and the guy weighs 220 pounds, he's barreling down. You know, that's what I think.
Well, you mentioned sometimes weather is a concern. I remember 2 years ago at Vandy, you said you lined it up that way because you wanted the wind in the fourth quarter for Elliott. Who's in charge of that on staff for reading the weather and saying we want this?
Well, no one when they get it wrong. But now we talk about it and we go over George Winter, our football operations director, is every day at practice is going to give us a weather report on the weather. Clint Haggard loves to give us the weather report. Normally he's wrong. He's like most meteorologists, but we talk through. Just going to be if it's going to make a difference in the game. That night it obviously did make a difference, and it was a good decision on our part.
Last spring, 17, Jalen Dickerson was viewed as a guy who could be a starter at safety. With all the injuries, haven't heard much about him since. What is it? Physical, mental? That's kind of holding him back?
No, he missed about
or?
10 days of camp with a hamstring. And when a young player misses 1 day of camp, it's an issue. When you miss 8 or 10 days, it's a major issue. And it's very hard for a young player to catch up. Same with R.J. Roderick. He missed 6 or 8 days with some different issues as far as illness and things are concerned. When a young player misses that much of camp, it is really, really hard to catch him up. And we're trying to. And they're both two really good, young, talented players. And they're going to be good players. But when you miss that much time, especially for a young player that's not played on Saturday, it's very difficult to catch them up. And we're doing the best we can. And they're doing the best they can. Yeah, I mean, they're working hard, but it's right now we're not into teaching middle field concepts. We're into teaching game plans, and it's very difficult right now to get those guys ready when they miss that much time, and they missed a lot of time.
Well, how do you get Debo maybe some more looks this week as opposed to 2 weeks ago? He seemed a little non-existent sometimes, and that's probably just because the matchups that you guys were given from Georgia.
Well, I thought in the first half we were very effective getting the ball in some situations. Whether or not we lined him up in the slot, we lined him up in the backfield, we lined him up as an outside receiver. Those looks will continue to happen. When you go 3 and out the first 2 series and Georgia keeps it for 8 to 10 play drives for 3 straight drives in the third quarter, it's hard to get him the ball when he's standing on the sideline. So it's a team game. We got to do a better job of staying on the field on offense and getting off the field on defense, and I think that'll help us a lot.
You mentioned kind of earlier targeting one-on-ones. Coming out of that Georgia game, did you feel like your receivers got the best of one-on-ones, or is that an area you felt those guys needed to win more?
Well, we had 6 drops, and if we caught 6 more balls, Jake would have completed 75% of his passes, which is generally viewed as pretty good. So we need to catch the ball. All right. Have a great day.